It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay's here. Andy Ihnatko. And it's the return of Rene Ritchie, and he comes bearing gifts. He's got all the new Apple stuff. We'll talk about the Mac Studio, the Apple display. It's got an iPhone inside. What a surprise. And yes, Apple pays another 5 million euros to the Dutch Dating Apps Authority. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 810, recorded Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. Doing the Dalrymple. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Buck Mason. Buck Mason's clothes are second to none. Once you try Buck Mason, they'll become your go-tos too. Head over to buckmason.com/MacBreak and get a free t-shirt with your first order. And by Ultimate Ears Fits. Ultimate Ears Fits are the world's most comfortable earbuds with premium sound and all-day comfort. Use promo code MacBreak at ue.com/fits to get your pair. And by Melissa. The U.S. Postal Service processes more than 98,000 address changes every single day. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned free at melissa.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. And he's back from his 2-week visit with Apple. Rene Ritchie, youtube.com/ Oh, I can already tell you're on the studio display. Your skin has never looked...
Plus has flattened me.
Your skin has never looked better. It's smooth. It's youthful. It is
it's
definitely...
an ultra-wide camera in a wide camera world, Leo.
Yeah, plus as he moves around, the camera is attempting to follow him.
You can always tell it's an Apple this little motion thing because there's too much headroom.
Yeah, they don't like the headroom.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God.
They don't like the headroom.
It's galling.
That's Alex Lindsay.
I need my headroom.
From 090.media and officehours.global. I watched your rocket launch this weekend.
It's kind of fun.
Really cool.
It was,
It was like Walter
crazy.
Cronkite. It was great. You even had, actually, Walter never had this, the trajectory, the speed, all of that stuff. That was very cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, remember, everybody just did that for fun. Like, that was just like, there was no, there was just, someone said, I'm doing a rocket. And then 2 people said, I want to come. And next thing you know, there's 40 people working on it. And we had a co-host from Australia and, the main host was from Australia. And she was breaking down the launch for us. She's an expert in space stuff.
And she has a nice Australian accent.
That's the best. Yeah.
Even better. Mate.
Smart with an Australian accent, the best.
No walking furries. And now, Andy Ihnatko from the library.
Yes, it was definitely our town taxes very much funded my entire appearance.
That's awesome.
First, the Public Works Department that decided to jackhammer the sidewalk outside my house starting like 10 minutes before the show. And then the public library, which gave me a place to run to when I realized that, they weren't just testing the equipment real quick. They're going to be here for a while.
So we are all now catching up with Rene.
Yes.
Because I got my my Mac Studio Ultra on Friday. Nice. It's really Lisa's, and she's got it all set up. I had canceled after reading... We've already talked about this, Rene. We talked about it on Twit. Jason Snell was on Twit. But I canceled my Mac Studio display after reading the reviews from Nilay Patel, from John Gruber, both of whom said the camera was terrible, the center stage was imperfect. Yeah. But what's interesting, Jason Snell says his camera looks great. So it may be some sort of weird build thing. You're on the studio display camera. It does not look great. It doesn't look as good as whatever you're using before anyway.
The Studio's display has literally an iPad 9 or an iPhone SE2 inside
with 64 gigs of storage.
Well, but that's economies of scale. Like they just have all these SoCs that Apple's not immune to chip shortages. They just bought an awful lot of stuff in advance, and that's what they have in stock. And it makes all the sense in the world to economize that as much as they can. So you literally have an iPad 9 camera system, an ultra wide iPad 9 camera with center stage, the A13 SoC, the RAM, the store, all of it. It is literally
so it's really a Frankenstein display. Frankenstein display.
I mean, who wanted an M1 in this, right? Like,
Yeah.
you take out the M1 that everybody wanted, you put in an A13,
Right.
and then you got a display.
Right. In fact, Mark Gurman, who was on for you last week, that's basically what he had concluded.
Thank you, Mark.
He had basically concluded that this was designed 2 years ago, same as the iPhone 11. They had all these parts. There's no reason to take out the 64 gigs of storage.
Yep.
You have to make a new SoC. So just throw it all in there.
It's just the board. Yeah, you just
It's
throw
just
the
the
board
board.
in and you're good. Yeah.
But the real question is it a good monitor for $1,500?
So, I mean, like, this is a hard thing to answer only because you have two very different types of customers. You have people who just want a monitor who should stay away from this. And then you have people who for 6 years have been begging Apple to just take the LG ultrafine 5K panel or the 5K iMac panel, just take that, put it in an Apple enclosure and give it to them, because the LG one has been problematic for years. Wi-Fi issues, display issues, it's cheap and plastic feeling. So they're like, just give us that, because what you can't get on the market, like there are a lot of 4K displays, but 4K at 27 inches isn't precisely 2X, which is what anyone who like cares about Apple stuff, especially UI designers and people who care about pixel perfect things, they want that because it means it's exactly on the pixel grid. It's not being scaled up or down. So all these designers are just, yes, thankfully, finally, we've got it. They were the intended customer for this, because there's no other reason for Apple to make a display. There are tons of other displays on the market. They didn't want to make it. LG just failed to make it. So they got back into it. And now a bunch of people who could care less about this monitor are angry about it. But the people who've been asking for it for 6 years are beyond the moon happy.
I got Lisa instead. I had already bought it because I didn't know that Apple was going to come out with a studio display. So I got her, actually it's a UHD 4K LG ultrafine, or not. I guess it's not ultrafine if it's not 5K, but it's fine. And she's not running it at a 4K anyway, because the monitor next to it is 1440. So it's scaled to 1440. Actually scales pretty nicely to 1440. Maybe is that because that's half 2880? I don't. Anyway,
at 24 inches, you want 4K. Sorry, at 21.5 inches, you want 4K. At 24, you want 4.5K.
It's a 31-inch monitor, 31.5-inch monitor.
Yeah. Then you want close to 6K.
No, you don't.
Like, again, if you care about those things.
She's not doing.
She's
merely doing
nerd
spreadsheets.
And you care about the grid.
Yeah, okay.
Her pivot tables need to be on grid.
Yeah, no, they are on grid. But what I'm saying is I had to lower the resolution anyway because it had to match the 49-inch monitor that's on the other side of it. You don't want to be moving back and forth and have all the point sizes had to match. Anyway, it was working great. I have to say, the studio is beautiful. We all watched Max Tech tear it apart. Vadim he was a brave man, because he was apparently tearing apart his video editor's Mac Studio, and I'm watching him take these screws out, and I could feel his pain knowing he's going to have to put those back. But thank goodness he did it, because we saw the size of we saw the size of the Ultra chip. It's really a great. I thought he did a good job with the teardown. He took the thermal paste off and all of that. It was a good job. And now we know how I don't know. You tell me. Beautifully made that studio is. It looked like it was. Just marvelous.
Thoreau made actually a really funny joke where he said like how much bigger the M1 Ultra is than an average AMD CPU. But it's just important to remember that this isn't just a CPU. This is an entire package. So you've got CPU. You got CPU. Like an Intel or Ryzen or AMD CPU is going to be way smaller because the GPU and everything is separate. So I think that's one of the reasons it's so big.
Yeah. Vadim did make one mistake where he kind of said, "Oh, it's upgradable." And Jason was able to correct that by saying by the way, there is, so that's the Ultra chip is where this thermal paste is. But in fact, if I go a little farther, he takes the thermal paste off, and you can even see the Apple logo on it, which is kind of cool.
Silicon.
And compare it to a Ryzen. But this is RAM above it and RAM below it, and the ML cores and all the other stuff.
Yeah, GPU cores.
Yeah. So this is not that huge. It's just two chips side by side, basically.
And all those chips around it that are surrounding it, all those chips around it are the things they haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, because eventually, wouldn't you just like a one-chip solution? Yeah,
I think that's what.
Can they do
I think
that?
they're straining TSMC's packaging technology
Maybe.
already.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see how big this gets.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna It's gonna be twice as big probably with the Pro.
Yeah, but it'll be
Four
two
times
separate
bigger.
packages. I think at that point.
Just put
Or
it
at least
side
two
by
separate-
side. But you want to
two
use that
separate
interconnect.
bonded dies.
Don't you want to use
The
that
interconnect's only for
interconnect?
one set, though. You can only have one interconnect set on this generation. One interconnect set per.
You
two
know
dies.
that? Because some people have been saying, oh, they'll
Yeah.
do a plus. No.
You can't. Yeah, you can go three-dimensionally, but I don't think you're going to get the same interconnect speed. You might get good interconnect speed.
There's not
but I don't think they'll
interconnect
be
all the way around the chip.
It's 2.5D. Alas, it's not 3D yet, but it's getting there.
Okay.
I'm going to switch out this display in a minute.
Anyway, beautifully made. Alex sent me
You said they clarified that the memory is not like it's not upgradable. It's usable by like if you had that. There's an empty slot because a lot of people got the lowest.
If you
memory
got 8
configuration.
terabytes, they would fill
Yeah, or 4
those.
terabytes.
They
Yes,
would fill
yes.
those. Apple can fill them. They're a non-standard chip for one thing, non-standard pinning, and non.
Well, they're naked. There's just nothing on them.
naked,
They're literally the raw chips.
and I think Jason pointed this out. You have to certify it in the software, say it's there, so you can't just stick something in there. You can't
because
even
the
move them
controllers
around.
are on the chip. The controllers aren't on. It's
Right.
not like an SD slot on a normal computer. Everything is on the SoC.
Right. And you couldn't just, even if you could get something that was like if, Other World Computing made something identical in form factor, it still wouldn't work because it has to be But Apple
We're not saying a
this is the
12-year-old
question.
couldn't figure it out, Leo, because they can figure out everything.
This is the question. Could Apple, if I brought my studio in and I said, I would like 2 more terabytes, could Apple do it? Presumably they could if they decided to offer that.
Maybe. They haven't announced it yet, and they did announce that they could switch the Visa mount in the back of your
I did see
studio
that.
display. So they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You bring in, if you decided I want the pivot or I don't want the pivot, I want Visa, you could bring it in and they can do that in the
And they can
store.
take out the power cord. We've had the silliest.
Oh, don't
use
pull the
like-
power cord. Yeah, when we did the
They can,
unboxing,
though.
I looked at it and I said, that looks just like the one on the iMac. You probably just pull it out. Don't.
Yeah. Well, you can. It's proprietary because it's so thin.
Let a professional do it. I'm just saying.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Alex sent me the photogrammetry.
We call it the Widowmaker.
The Widowmaker. The
I shot
photogrammetry
it-
project.
I think I shot it like 5 years ago when I was in India. Yeah.
You sent it to iJustine when she got the Mac Pro. That's why all her cores were pegged when she did her video.
Right.
You said on when you run this on your laptop. Which laptop?
No, on my iMac, it runs for 3 days and then the iMac crashes. Like it never. If decimation's turned on, it's fine without it. But if you turn decimation on, it is when that's really the thing that takes a while.
So I did not. Your video did not say turn on. Well, maybe it did, but it was like optional. So I decided not to turn on decimation. I'm going to go home and redo these benchmarks. But a couple of things came up, which I thought was kind of surprising. And now more and more people are saying this. I benchmarked it on the Ultra, the Mac Studio Ultra, only 64 gigs of RAM. And by the way, the program we used, Metashape, is very RAM intensive. So it would have worked probably faster with 128 gigs.
It will use everything.
Yeah.
Like it generally will go out and grab onto everything it can possibly get a hold of and start using it.
So it wasn't really a fair comparison because I also did it on my Alienware Aurora, which is running an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X and a GeForce RTX 3080, so pretty high-end hardware with 128 gigs of RAM. So it used that RAM.
And they've had more time to optimize for it than they have.
I think some of this is Metashape, is AGI stuff, which is, by the way, you said that, there's a 30-day trial. You can download this and run it, which is good because I wasn't going to buy it. I'm sure it's expensive. But I couldn't get to it at first. In fact, I started writing you an email saying, well, the site's in Russia, it's down. Then I realized, I block Russian sites. So I had to go in.
And what was funny was that I have to find some other stuff too, because I forgot that it was Russian. Like I haven't had to deal with them for years. And
There's other programs
until you said it before the show. I was like, oh right, they're Russian.
They're from St. Petersburg. But which is, by the way, doesn't mean they're bad people. We just don't want to send them any money. We probably can't send them any money. Anyway, I ran it on the Mac Studio without decimation, which is what? What is decimation?
A decimation says I've got a whole bunch of polygons. I want to reduce it. So that specific thing, when left undecimated, will be about 350 million polygons. Oh, wow. And you can't open that on your phone. So if you want to get it down to 2 million.
Okay.
And then what it does is it looks at each surface is broken into what we call a polygon. And it looks at the break angle between every surface. So it goes, oh, well, these are really close together, so I'm just going to make them one. And then if it's curving, it'll say, I'll leave those polygons there. So it kind of flattens things out puts better detail where it needs to be, and so it's a kind of a intelligent process to kind of
and that's
reduce the number of polygons.
CPU bound.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 steps I did on both the PC and the Mac, Mac Studio Ultra, was align the photos. There were 228 raw Canon CR2 raw photos of this Indian. Is it a temple? This historic
It's
site.
actually just a square. No, it's a square. It's a spice square. Like they have. It's like the Spice Central of Old Delhi. It's got a square inside of a building. It's kind of cool.
You took a lot of pictures. So the first thing it does is align the photos, and that took 3.5 hours in the Mac Studio. You could see, by the way, this is the last stage. First it aligns the photos, then it builds a dense cloud, then it builds a mesh, then it builds a texture. It's almost done here. And you could see, look at so this is the CPU cores. I'm running the activity monitor. You could see it's redlining on the efficiency cores. It's really, this is something I told Lisa, you're never going to see this again on your Mac Studio. But all 20 cores are 100%. But notice the GPU, not really being challenged.
I really think that they just don't know how to
They didn't do it
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were a little late getting to the M1 even. This is M1 native, but they didn't get to that till late last year. So I think that maybe they haven't optimized it yet. But I'll give you the run times anyway. It took on the PC it took 3.5 hours to align the photos. On the Mac, it took 3.5 hours. So that was I noticed those were CPU intense. This was CPU intensive on the Mac and GPU intensive on the PC. So I think that confirms what you're saying. The 3080 really chewed through that, but it wasn't much faster. Building the dense cloud is what took a long time on the Mac. That was 13.5 hours compared to under 2 hours on the PC. Under 2 hours. So that's a big difference.
And that's something that's more easily parallelized. So it's, that thing, so that if it was optimized for that graphics card, we would expect it to be a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, again, more RAM, twice as much RAM. The rest of the times are pretty comparable. The Mac took half an hour to build the mesh. It was only 20 minutes on the PC. To build the texture on the Mac, 3 hours, 14 minutes. To build the texture on the PC, 1 hour and 14 minutes. So the real difference was that second step, which took a long time on the Mac Studio. What's the moral there? Well, if you're using Metashape to do photogrammetry, you'd probably do it better on a PC with enough hardware.
And again, we want to say, if you're using that app on that software or hardware,
specifically, yes,
because one of the things that I'm going to be testing when my Studio arrives is the photo, the object capture that Apple does, which is optimized for it, and so it's going, which I think could be really fast.
So you're going to send me a Cinema 3D project.
Yeah. So for the next test, we're gonna build something in Cinema 4D that pushes it pretty hard. It won't maybe not take 30 hours to render, but it might take 6 on my computer, 6 or 7 hours to render something. It's got a bunch of global illumination, a bunch of geometry, a bunch of things, and then you can open that. But I'll use just primitive shapes so that you don't need any models. It'll be a really light little project that will be complicated. so then you can just open it up and go.
We've seen some other stories like this from Hardware Times. Apple's M1 Ultra gets murdered by AMD's Threadrippers, slower than the RTX 3050 in content creation. And I think what you're really seeing is not as much a hardware comparison as software comparisons here, whether they're optimized properly and things like that.
And also what you're doing with them. So there's certain things that are so in the creation process, there's certain things that are going to do better on a raw GPU than a CPU, et cetera. But there's also things that we haven't really talked about, so grabbing a big model and rotating it, like a giant model of 300 million polygons with 8K textures needs a ton of RAM and possibly more than what a video card can actually handle. So that's where an M1 might end up being better.
I'll tell you what,
rotating those things around.
I never decimated that model. But when it finished, I was able to rotate it in real time very easily, move around with it, no problem. So that confirms what you're saying.
So that model that Apple uses, I don't think Alex is familiar with it. The model that the Pro Workflows team made, it's a spaceship that's got the sun behind it, and its polygon count is absurd. And it's too big to fit in the RAM of any existing video card. But because of the unified memory, they can open it, move the sun, all in real time. It retextures, it does all of those things.
By the way, look how much better. Look how much better Renee's picture looks now.
Can I add one thing, Leo, too? Like one of the biggest issues we've seen this for a long time now, but it's sort of coming to a head with this, is that it is not easy to benchmark.
Right.
It looks easy now because so many companies make these prepackaged download, run and done in one benchmarking apps. Like they're on the App Store. You literally download them, you press a button, but like you're not a Nantech, and like you don't have to be, but a Nantech spent years learning what they're doing, and it takes them several days and a lot of work to get like the quality of benchmarkings they do. And a lot of people, and I made all these mistakes, like I would run them and I would say, why aren't they different? And I realized, oh, I'm running 1440 on display and that's not even pushing the max. So of course I'm not seeing a difference. I have to go 4K off screen. Oh, I need a commercial license for that. That's not the free version. So I got to go and get the commercial license for that. Or you've got to run in unlimited mode because otherwise you're not taxing. So it's like, it is really easy and fast to do it wrong. And a lot of the early tests we saw was like, it was just people running these apps, but not having any context for what they were running.
The Geekbench or the Cinemark or, all of those. And by the way, I know this because I worked with Patrick Norton, who did all the benchmarking for PC, ZD's PC Labs. And so
it wasn't so easy.
It's not easy. And Patrick was a master of it. You really have to know what you're doing. Nantech has not yet come out with their benchmarks, which is kind of telling.
They're not fast. So they're never fast. Like one of the jokes was like, I think it took Ryan a year to do a Mac once. And I don't think it's going to take that long, but like the level of work, and also they've lost, like Future has destroyed that company. They've lost almost everybody left to go work at the company now. So it's really only Ryan and a couple people left. Andre just left, who did the last Apple review set. Yeah. So it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Which means it's very hard for a consumer to decide because, on the one hand, you have Apple's stellar marketing, which makes you feel like this is the fastest thing ever made in the whole wide world. And so the reason I bring up the photogrammetry example is not to diss the Mac Studio, but just to say it's complicated. And it really does depend on what you're doing, the software you're using, how well-tuned it is. And the Ultra, as cool as the Ultra is and how much faster as it is than the old Mac Pro, it's still not necessarily the fastest beast in the woods, And
it depends at what too. Like a lot of the stuff, we were talking about this before the show. If you have an NVIDIA card, if you have a 3090, you can beat it with an M1 Ultra in some tests. And those tests are well optimized for both. So there are a few tests that will win it. There are a few tests it will lose at. Right. If you need CUDA cores, you need ray tracing, you need gaming, it does not matter how fast the M1 Ultra is because it will not help you in the least. Yes.
Well, and I will say this, the Alienware Aurora fans were on Macs and loud the whole time. They didn't overheat, but they were, they were audible. And at no point did this, in fact, the studio, when you turn it on, the fans come on and they just run. They never ramped up. They never ramped down. They're completely silent. When I was showing that picture of all the cores peaked, put my hand behind it, the air is maybe slightly warm. Nothing's hot to the touch. So the cooling system on that is excellent, as Vadim's video demonstrates. They've really done a good job with cooling it.
And if I can give you just a couple numbers, like for if you have an optimized GPU load, you'll get 1.9 times the performance of the Macs because it really does treat it as one metal object. The neural engines are not treated as one object just because neural engines are like their own little self-contained kingdoms, but it will dispatch between them. So you'll get like 1.5%. And that's like 1.7% in mixed GPU neural engine workloads. And for ProRes, it's almost twice as fast again. So like if your boundary, like if literally time is more important than money to you, you can get almost twice as fast ProRes renderings off of this, which you can't get on a lot of other videos.
But those are cherry-picked numbers from Apple. And
or it depends on your workflow. It's not cherry picked.
Apple is cherry picked in the sense that it's going to reflect best on the Ultra. You have to know what you want to do, and you have to do some figuring to figure out if the Ultra is going to benefit.
Yeah, you need to know your workflow.
You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that you need to know it well. And again, the people who really are going to get the most out of a PC are going to be doing some pretty esoteric things with it. If you're doing, when it comes, and that's great. And I still have PCs that do PC things for me because I need 4 NVIDIA cards or I need, a bunch of other things that need to be addressed. So I'm not saying I definitely don't think it's the fastest. As the thing that I want to put on my desk that is going to be, really fast for the stuff I do day to day, it's a pretty exciting, platform. And if you're a video editor, it's very much optimized for what you're doing.
Especially if you're using Final Cut. I got one for Henry. I got an Ultra
or Resolve
or Resolve. How about Premiere? Well, is it?
They're definitely. I think Adobe's definitely optimizing it, and I think it's going to get better. I don't know if it's native yet. There's the hard part with for all of the Adobe products. Yeah, all the Adobe products just have a lot of technical debt, and so they, so it just takes them a little longer to take full advantage of the hardware.
Yeah. So, and the other point, really important point, maybe more important to real people, is you probably don't need the Ultra. Very few people will need the Ultra.
Probably need a Mac Mini. Almost everybody needs a Mac Mini.
Well, you know what I bought?
I
bought for my office after all this a Mac Mini.
Well, I bought
great.
Yeah, I bought the Max. I didn't get the Ultra because I'm planning to get the Mac Pro, so I'm starting to save for that. And I was like, I'm not going to buy one that's really, really good and then another one that's even better. I'm going to buy one that I can set. This one's going to be my desk unit that I'm doing my desk work, fast desk work with.
Let me ask a challenging question though of all of you. As high as I am on Apple Silicon, the M2 based on the A15, right, is not going to necessarily be. We're not going to see doubling every year, right?
No, I mean the only way you'll see doubling is if the Yeah. Well, I mean, the big story with M2 is increased efficiency. So you'll be able to put it in smaller enclosures like the MacBook Air. It's slightly faster on single core. it can support extra cores. So you'll get some multi-core scaling because you'll have 1 or 2 or 4 extra cores in the setup. But also it might have a Ultra Fusion in more than just a 2-die configuration, which would allow it to, again, double up the scale. And I think the more exciting thing is that when you get to the Mac Pro, it's not going to be just about extra speed. That's going to be the one that's extensible, that has a PCIe card slots. So if that's something you need, this does not help you. This is trash can, the 2nd generation. If you want the cheese grater next generation, then that's what the Mac Pro is going to be for you.
Yeah, and I know people love Macs, and I don't want to rain on your parade by any means. And I'm very happy. Lisa's got a Mac. I'm going to have an Ultra on Friday that'll be for my home system. No, she has an Ultra. I'm going to have a Max on Friday. I know I don't need an Ultra. I know she doesn't.
Put it on the
She's
home
my
theater,
wife.
aren't you, Leo?
Yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah. It's actually would be a great home theater machine, by the way, because it's very quiet.
Great for Super Nintendo emulation.
Yeah.
That's really what you want.
But
they'll take down your videos.
It's very easy, and I fell for it. It's very easy to think that this is revolutionary technology compared to everything else out in the universe, including Intel and AMD and others. And it is revolutionary for Apple, and it's very exciting.
For GPU it is too.
But I think the expectation is Apple to the moon, and I don't know. These are really iPhone chips. Apple's just capitalizing on the developments done for
GPU.
iPhone.
No one's been able to do the GPU stuff. Everyone's tried and haven't been able to. But whether that
essentially,
matters
though,
to you,
motherboard, it's essentially built-in GPU. It's not discrete GPU.
Right, but the thing is
does
that
it matter?
if Apple,
does the implementation matter?
If Apple starts to build games that take full advantage of the RAM available to the GPU, it will be.
There's a lot of ifs there.
If they do. No, you're absolutely, if they do. But I'm saying that right now, no one's ever had that much RAM available to the GPU.
Yeah.
So there's when we look at it, like there are so many things that I do. When I first started doing games, the whole level that you were in was limited to 3,000 polygons. The iPhone right now is limited to 2 million polygons. But if I could bring in, let's say, 400 million polygons with 8K texture maps and motion blur and a bunch of other things. Those are all things that takes a lot of RAM that I couldn't do right now. And so that's the thing that can be done.
Developers,
with that much
though,
RAM.
are very reluctant to write to that hardware because it's a much smaller market. Not on the iPhone, but on the desktop.
Just buy Valve. Apple just buy Valve. They have money.
Apple has a thing called Arcade. In Arcade, they just pay people to develop.
Yeah, but Arcade doesn't need to look like that, does it? It's a casual game.
But I'm saying but Apple already has relationships with a lot of developers. If they just said, hey, the developer may not commit to the hardware, but Apple could just say, how about we just give you $20 million to do this? And then they'll go, okay.
I'm kind of the opinion that if you want to be mobile, if you want battery life, there's no question the M1's superior. If you're on the desktop, then it's a much more complicated equation.
If you want a thin enclosure, then if you want a really small device, then it still behooves you.
Or you don't want loud fans or heat. But if power is not an issue, then you really have to look at what your jobs are and what your software does and which software is going to optimize.
If you're hipster bougie like me, Leo, then it's
great for the bougie, and I'm bougie.
If you're not hipster bougie,
I'm all bougie about it. I mean, you compare that Aurora It's the uglier sin PC tower. Ugly case. Loud, obnoxious, rude.
And you got to work on it a little bit. Like, we don't have time for that. Us hipster bougies don't have time for that, Leo. We buy a box, we put it down, and we work.
But there are people who say, I don't have time to sit watching these stuff render, so I'm going to buy the fastest PC I can. So I guess you know who you are. But if
it's a small sliver, small sliver of the market.
The other, it's a tiny sliver of the market. The other thing that we've said several times, but I'll say it again, all the M1s, every one of them, single core performance is virtually identical, right? Because they're all running at the same clock speed.
Yeah, they're all the same generation.
So when I got the Mac Mini, that little Mac Mini, dinky Mac Mini for $699 running at the same clock speed as the Max, as the Ultra.
Yep, as the Ultra, yep. It's core
for single core stuff. Now, when my browser becomes multi-core, my email becomes multi-core, my Opera, I mean, there's not much, right?
Well, Leo, if you're not running every Chrome tab on a separate GPU core already, there's nothing that
there's no help for me. Absolutely. So it's too bad because it's very, very complicated.
It is, but I will say the people who are going to have the computers, they are still a very small. The people who have the computers that aren't going to benefit from the M1, and again, that's a very, very small market. Like, I know that when I'm doing the stuff I'm doing, like when I need 4 GPUs, the kind of stuff that I'm doing, there's like 100 people in the world.
Yeah, I know.
And so the thing is that, and because I'm told that constantly when I'm talking to the developers, they're like, no one's doing that except for you. And so I think that we have to be careful of also the big meat of the market for a studio or something like that is going to be video driven. It's going to be, a different kind of, 3D. Metashape is still a very sub 1/1,000,000th of the market kind of size. And so those are the kind of things that, what's more interesting is to see, for instance, the object capture stuff. The reason I want to test that is because that potentially is a middle market coming, and I think that that's going to be more interesting. And also when we look at the reason that the GPU having all that RAM is really important is that if I want to render 3D objects out of Motion or Final Cut or whatever, that means that those are going to render really beautifully, and they can be very, very high detailed, and they can be inside of my video editor. And that's something that is, not easy to do right now.
So if you're going to get the Ultra, you should get 128 gigs of RAM. You should get the Max RAM.
If you're going for an Ultra, I would keep going. All the way up.
Max it up. Yeah. Storage, maybe not, but, get enough storage for your current project. You're either making money off the
machine, or you have so much money that you can just get the machine.
Well, that's not even quite right, because if you're making money off the machine and time is of the essence, it may not be the best machine for you. Again, it comes down to what you're doing.
Well, for these workloads, like
not all of these, not the photogrammetry.
But
I mean, you got to figure out, like, it's studio. So, like, if you're Mary Spender, you're laughing. Like, it's clearly defined at a very specific market. You don't want expandability, but you want something that's more than the Mac Mini. Like, it's a very narrow swath of narrow swath.
I'm only bringing it up because Apple's marketing would imply that it is somehow better than anything else ever written, and it really depends on what you're doing, and you need to be somewhat savvy at this point when you're buying Apple Silicon, because.
But what I would like to do is take is to test the rendering video, out of Final Cut. Or
that should be really fast because it has a separate engine.
But I'm saying that when we talk about it again, we have to remember that
if you're using ProRes
photogrammetry,
But if you're using ProRes, you should get it because but ProRes is an Apple technology, and
that's used on the PC. And basically, if I'm talking to pretty much anybody in Hollywood, I go, "What would you like me to deliver?" And they go,
"It's all ProRes." Yeah.
So it's
So if you're doing ProRes because of those playback engines, right?
You get DNX. You get it's just what everybody kind of has. There's DNX for Avid, and some people will still ask for that, but it's pretty rare. Like at this point, usually when we're
but I'm saying
companies, it's
if
ProRes.
if you're going to use ProRes, the Ultra is the way to go because of the playback.
The Max has the
same
ProRes
playback
chip,
engines.
I believe. Yeah. So I think that's there. And it's not just playback.
It doesn't have twice. It doesn't have two of them.
Right. It doesn't have twice.
Only has one of them.
So So if you're going to do a lot of rendering out of video, absolutely. And the thing.
Well, wait a minute though. Does it split the task? Because, or is that just good if you're playing two 8K streams.
It's about 1.5x. It's not perfectly linear because it's got to dispatch between the different engines.
So there is but it is able to dispatch between the two engines.
Oh yeah, compressor. Yes. If you're handing it to compressor will just look at all the. Okay. I don't know how other ones do it, but compressor will look at everything you have and separate that out into separate pieces.
I should tell Henry to abandon Premiere because he's going to get the Ultra, and
we haven't tested it yet, so I don't know. I mean, but I will say that
GPU aware like last year. Like they're still running to catch up on.
Well, the orders are 3 months out, so there's plenty of time to find out.
And the main thing is that is a big deal. Like the rendering of ProRes or DNX or whatever you're doing is a big deal because it takes a long. Playback is fine. Like I don't know, I can do X number of 8K. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but what I will say is that I have projects that take me an hour to render out a Final Cut, or an hour and a half to render out a Resolve. So having something that is optimized to write that out is pretty exciting. And the drive speed, by the way, is really important. The internal drive speed,
and it's very fast,
incredibly fast, because that's usually the number one limiter to the render time is actually that render out.
Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people will buy a Mac Studio just because it's elegant. It's a great, beautiful solution with all the ports you want. It's quiet. Fans never go up. They never go down.
And they're Mac users. I mean, the thing is that, like, you have to have Mac users not feel like they're falling too far behind is really the only key, because they don't really want to use the PCs.
Right.
You know, like when I have to do PC stuff, I mean, I have somebody else in the company do it most of the time.
And I think there's a very specific reason why Apple decided to call this the Studio. The first time they've used a name like that, I really think that they're trying to appeal to the creators, the people who have YouTube channels, the people who do lots and lots of streaming, who probably acknowledge to themselves they're not quite so fancy enough to justify a Mac Pro, but they're telling themselves that their needs far exceed that of a Mac Mini. I mean, I myself by the end of the presentation, I was tweeting, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for in a desktop Mac," forgetting that the Mac Mini still exists. That probably they're not terminating the entire product line, and it's very, very likely that by the time they introduce one, they will introduce a Mac Mini that addresses my one problem with the M1 Mac Mini, which is the lack of output.
Right.
So.
And we have to remember that in the social world, I mean, I don't know all of the social world, but I do a lot of consulting that deals with social folks, that creators, and the vast majority that we run into are using Final Cut. You know, now the only ones that use Premiere are no one uses anything else. It's Final Cut or Premiere, and some of them are playing with Resolve, but it's generally Final Cut and Premiere, and it's like 90% Final Cut, because it's the only people that are using Premiere are like, oh, someday I'll work in Hollywood as an editor.
I'm trying to figure out why
get a job somewhere.
Why Hank chose Premiere, to be honest with you. I don't know why he's not using Final. We even have a Final. You could use.
I mean, if you're using After Effects, there's a good reason to use Premiere.
Yeah, After Effects is still amazing.
Yeah, After Effects is amazing, and it ties into Premiere really nicely. And there's the ecosystem that Adobe provides for you.
Right.
I will admit that I'm not a huge fan. I haven't used Premiere for a long time.
Well, so not because he worked with us and we use Premiere. You know, all of our editors use Premiere on PCs.
The one thing that's nice about it, though, like in general, video workloads, a lot of we'll make a video and people go, "Oh my God, you're testing video again. You have a YouTube channel. Can't you just build WebKit for me once?" But the nice thing about video is that it really is one of the few workloads that hits as many transistors as possible, because you have the CPU managing everything and also doing any gnarly codecs like you're pulling off your Sony camera. You have the ProRes, the H.264, all those engines. The GPU's doing all the effects plugins and layers. Now the neural networks are doing Final Cut Pro is in beta. It's got all these new features for audio suppression and tracking and just a lot of stuff that really leverages neural networks. And you can light up the entire chip and really see how it handles that. So it's not, if you target creative pros who are doing video work, you sort of bring in audio pros and a bunch of other special effects people at the same time.
Well, and it's a much broader base than photogrammetry. There are a hell of a lot more people doing video.
Because there's no photogrammetry TikTok yet, but it's getting there, Leo.
It is telling that Apple seeded review units of this. In fact, Jason Snell he got a Max, and a lot of much smaller, much less known YouTube channels got Ultras for review. And that's exactly because that's the audience. I mean, I think it completely confirms that's exactly why the audience Apple wants.
And they're going to see the biggest difference in their tests.
Right.
And Apple spends a lot of time paying attention to social creators because a lot of them are using it. And, I think that it's, that's what, when we had Justine's, vlog university, there was a lot of, Apple was there.
Oh, of course it was.
So it was.
That's a huge market.
But it's a much bigger market than broadcast. I mean, people get enamored by the idea that broadcast is what they should be paying attention to, but that's a tiny market, and they're finicky and difficult to deal with. I'm one of them. We're difficult. And we have weird things that we want to do with your hardware, and so that's we're not the market.
Probably
that you should build
celebrating the fact that YouTube and TikTok and Instagram stories exist, because that's created a massive market for Mac and what they're making.
Oh yeah.
It's sort of half of one, half of the other. On the one hand, when a professional like Alex looks at a product, he really gets down. He will not be fooled by anything. Because he knows exactly what's going on. He knows that, well, this is interesting, but it's not really significant. They haven't really changed the workflow. This really isn't anything very, very different. And so on that way, the professionals are actually giving the best reviews. But on the flip side, the creators are probably the people who are more likely to be doing typical things. So I'm very much a fan of the, wow, yes, this is a terrible, terrible problem. If you're one of very, very few people who actually are doing this kind of, if you're one of the few people who have to do photogrammetry on this kind of a time crunch, for somebody like me who's just doing a 4K video 3 times a week, oh my God, this has freed up so much of my time.
Yeah. Hey, I want to take a little break. We'll come back. There's lots more to talk about. I got to find out what Renee has learned from Apple, by the way. But first, I want to show you my new wardrobe. Oh, my Buck Mason is here. I'm so excited. Buck Mason, we all have our favorite go-tos, right? Shirts, sweater, jeans, especially now since we can work from home. The stuff you wear all the time. My go-tos, they're all from Buck Mason. And I just got my new shipment of Buck Mason beautiful gear. Here's a curved hem Hemley. Buck's famous for the curved hem, by the way. The curved hem tee, GQ calls it the best T-shirt in the game. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. They're timeless. They never go out of style. And the most important thing to me is they're very well made. I love the tailored look and fit of their T-shirts. Even if you wash them again and again and again, they're going to look and fit just as good as the first day they came. I've got my sweatsuit here. Here's my Buck Mason jeans. Comfortable. Should I take them out of the... I've been saving these. I've been kind of waiting for this ad to open the box. So... because I wanted my new stuff. I want my new Buck Mason stuff. These are comfy. This is what I really like to wear. Soft, expandable waistline. For certain of us, that's an important feature. These are sweats that don't look like sweats. They look nice. They even have a fly, a pseudo fly, so people won't know you're not wearing dress pants. I love the hoodies. Got a beautiful Buck Mason hoodie. Let me show you this curved hem tee, because I think that's an important feature of Buck Mason. BuckMason.com/MacBreak. I want you to try them. They're going to become your go-tos because they're soft, they're comfortable, they're well made, they last and last and last. You will never find a better T-shirt than this. Look at this with a curved hem. It's so great. My son yells at me when I tuck in anything. He says, "Dad, you look like a dad." I am a dad, so I don't, when I'm around him, I wear my Buck Masons, and he says, "Dad, you're looking sharp. You're looking good. Look at that. That's the curved hem. Best T-shirt in the game." Oh, I wish you could feel this too. So soft. They make jeans, they make shirts, they make jackets, they make all your go-tos. They look great. Actually, that's the next thing I'm getting, by the way. That Canyon suede bomber. Can't wait. That is a gorgeous jacket. Once you try Buck Mason, you'll be like me. It'll be your go-to. Yes, they have clothes for women too. Men and women, boys and girls. Go to buckmason.com/MacBreak. You will get a free T-shirt with your first order because they know you will be hooked. BuckMason. buckmason.com/MacBreak. Get a free T-shirt with your first order. Oh, Buck Mason. And if you can work from home, man, you're going to live in these. You're going to live in these. I might stop wearing blazers and just start wearing my Canyon bomber. Love it. Buck Mason. Thank you, Buck. buckmason.com/MacBreak. Let's see here. Should we, were you gone for briefings, Renee? Can you even talk about it? Is it secret?
Usually, like it is a mix of things. Usually after the event, if you get review units from Apple, they want to talk to you before they send them to you.
Yeah. So did you learn anything? For instance, did they tell you that there's an iPhone in your monitor? No.
No, they just talked about A13, and the features that they don't get into the plumbing very often. They don't do it on mass briefing.
It's actually running iOS 15.4.
Yeah. It basically all it's doing is the Yojimbo, the Yo Siri stuff. It's doing the audio processing for the microphones,
center stage,
for the speakers, and it's in the center stage. Yeah.
So
do you see that
people have looked at output to say it's only using 2 gigs of that storage, but again, you got the system on the chip. The other reason it's good to have 64 gigs is it could update itself, although apparently it doesn't. You have to use the Mac to do the update. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you see that someone on Twitter dumped the DMG of the system image for that, and so they found the recovery mode screen for the monitor.
No, I have to find that. Sorry,
I put it in the show notes.
I love it. But it's so easy to think, Dennis, see, doesn't that look good? That's a sharp.
There you go.
That's a sharp hoodie. I like that. I know, I'm not
Damn, like you and Renee are both like the cool kids with hoodies, and I'm the dude in the work shirt.
I'll get you some Buck Mason. I'll get you some Buck Mason.
Oh, come on, you're adorable, Andy.
This is the one I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna wear to work. I'm a sucker for white shirts, but man,
do it. Leo, that looks so good. You could clean a nano texture display.
That's the problem. I'm also a sucker for spaghetti and white shirts and tomato sauce. Oh man, though, I'm gonna wear this. I don't know. Next time I'm at a wedding, I don't know. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, just get a Sharpie and draw a bow tie on it. It'll be good. I've done that.
So is it what line number is the tweet? Because I would like to.
That would be.
Oh, there it is. I see it. Martin Noble. The recovery. This is the thing you do not want to see. And I'm going to be honest, Renee. It's one of the reasons I canceled this. I don't want an operating system in my monitor.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If it means that, like on my Dell display, I have had half-hour instances of frustration because look, where you ever the thing where you're yelling at the screen? Yes, you are plugged into a display port. Look,
constantly.
I'll point at. If they use that to say, hi, here's explicit. If you're seeing the screen and you're not expecting to see the screen, here's some information that I can give you because I am a working operating system and I can do a self-diagnostic.
I'll also gently point out that I have a display here that runs Mac OS and I have a display here that runs Web OS. So I'm just OS'd all over my displays.
Yeah, well, if I could buy a TV, I love my LG TVs. If I could buy a TV that didn't have Web OS, that was just a monitor, I would.
Birds,
at least
the little Web OS birds, they're so cute.
At least I can buy a monitor that doesn't have an operating system.
Yeah.
They have embedded Linux or something. They got to be running something in there. It's got to be like embedded Linux.
What do you mean?
But I think that the ability to also do things like just share to the monitor without having to deal with the computer and how to integrate it or whatever.
They put all that
No,
hardware in, but you can't do any of that.
I filed radars for that. I filed radars for stereo pairing if you have 2 displays, also for Sidecar and for AirPlay without a Mac.
So
I just want to
this is a radar. It's not a bug radar. This is a request for a feature request.
Yeah.
I still feel like, especially with 64 gigs of RAM, maybe not, but sure seems like there's a lot of smoke in that area.
64 gigs of SSD. The RAM is lower.
Or I'm sorry, not RAM, but
storage.
SSD. But I mean, 64 gigs of. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that there's a fire. I'm just saying there's a lot of smoke.
Well,
that is just an interesting, like, I don't know, sociological thing where if they manage to put all that stuff behind like a blob of like black plastic, like on the back of most things, and nobody who did the teardown could sense that, hey, wait a minute, look at everything that's in here. Now that people know that there's essentially a full-featured iOS computer in here, are people going to be disappointed if they buy this and on their own initiative they decide, hey, wait a minute, in 2 years this thing is capable of being an AirPlay target. Why isn't this an AirPlay target? Hey, this can run iOS apps. Why isn't this running iOS apps?
I think that's what's happening right now. Hey, you know what? If they turn that on, I will buy it. But until they do,
you know what, Leo? Like AirPods run AudioOS, and Apple has upgraded that several times. Like they've added spatial audio and a bunch of other features. It'd be interesting if these were the first upgradable displays. Like all of a sudden, WWDC comes out and goes, "Here's direct point-to-point AirPlay. Enjoy."
Yeah.
Well, and the point is, regardless of what they're planning to do in the immediate future, putting that chip in with some storage means that they can do all kinds of things in the future. The problem you really get into when you buy hardware is you're now committing to it, especially a monitor. You're going to keep for a long time, and so having something in there that at this point doesn't cost them very much to add, they add that to it, and now they can do all kinds of things in the future.
So that's what Gurman was saying is don't expect that. Apple never does that, and I think Renee was kind of saying that. Too. Do you really think it's a possibility they're going to come along? I didn't
think they'd ever upgrade AirPods, Leo. Whoever heard of having your headset upgraded, and they did
just because Apple's never done something doesn't mean they won't do it because they've done that before.
You also have to look at that they may want to be able to tell you that this works all the way back to some certain date, right? So for instance, the ultra wideband chips were being added for a long time without even talking about them. Right. They're just being put into the phones because it allows them. And then like HDR, there's a lot of things in HDR and Atmos processing and so on and so forth that was being added to the hardware for a long time, because now what you can say is we now have 100. There's another value to Apple being able to tell partners, I've got 100 million people or 200 million people that can use this technology, is different than saying, well, we just started shipping them and we're hoping that it goes well.
Oh, and to Alex's point, this isn't an HDR panel the way that we think about it now, like with 1,000 nits of OLED or mini LED. Right. But back with the 2017 iPads, Apple implemented the quasi-dodgy LCD consortium's version of HDR, and this goes to 600 nits. And basically what it does is it lowers the base nits and then brightens them for the highlights. It can't get the blacks, but it takes HDR source. Like the Apple TV Plus stuff is the HDR source. If you airdrop HDR from your iPhone, it takes the HDR tone map, and then it does what they call EDR, where it pulls as much dynamic range out of it as it can, but which is better than a lot of really cheap HDR.
Without local dimming, that is not HDR. I'm sorry. And if you can't get a black, that ain't HDR. I'm sorry.
They call it EDR, but it gives you much better than an SDR LCD panel will give you.
Yeah, and I will say that Apple's tone mapping is exceptional. Even to things that are SDR. So they do a pretty good job of that.
I remember the days when people would go, that's not HDR, that's tone mapping.
There was a big war though, Leo, because about like 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, HDR, like OLED could get inky blacks, but they could not get bright at all. And LCD could get really bright, but they could not get black. And they were fighting over what the definition of HDR should be. Luckily, the right side won.
It has been solved. I mean, this is a monitor from 2 years ago. Well, it has been solved today. It's been solved
OLED
cheaply.
Got bright.
Right, yeah. OLED got bright. There's QLED. There's all sorts of technologies that bring these two together. So you can get full array local dimming inexpensively on a TV, then get real HDR on your LCD.
So. But you have to be careful of it's also what makes sense as a monitor. So there's a lot of things. For instance, OLED looks really, really great, but leave some white emails, like white background emails on your OLED for a little while. Like walk away for lunch and come back, and you're going to be really bummed because that, and I've seen we left a graphic. I didn't leave it, but somebody, we'll just say, left a graphic on an OLED. Overnight, and that was the end of the monitor. Yeah. So monitors are different beasts than TVs. So because we solved it with TVs doesn't necessarily mean they make good monitors.
Yeah. Although I have a beautiful 55-inch OLED monitor, my Alienware monitor, 120 hertz refresh rate's gorgeous.
They're really nice.
Mm-hmm. And I make sure it turns itself off after 15 minutes. I don't allow it to stay on.
That was the other thing. You can't get, some people were upset you can't get 5K 120 hertz, but that's the limitation of Thunderbolt 4. It can do 4K 120 hertz or 5K 60. That's the protocol will not go any faster than that until they ship DisplayPort 2.0 and Thunderbolt 5 whenever they
That's another question I have. I'm going to be putting this studio on that 120 hertz monitor. It's 4K. It's not 5K. Can it run it?
Yeah,
at
4K, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, 4K, you're good.
I thought it might be limited to 60. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
One other thing that just occurred to me that I wish it were possible to do a teardown of the signal path of what the logic is doing inside there, because it just occurred to me that iOS devices have an end of life designation, where at some point, no, we're not going to update we're not going to update the software for this anymore. So whatever it does right now, that's what it's going to do. Or whatever we do in the future, it's not going to work with it. Wouldn't it be terrible if it's not truly a display port, like a display that at some point it needs the software to say, oh yes, this is a valid device. I'm going to accept this signal and I'm going to put it on this panel. And in 5 years' time, it's going to say, oh, sorry, I know that the HDMI TV that your aunt won in a church raffle 18 years ago still works today, but your 5-year-old $1,500 Apple panel is no longer going to work because we don't want to update the software for it.
If you have nothing, like if you plug it in as a bare panel, you don't get the iOS stuff, obviously. Like you get just a basic webcam, basic speakers, basic mic, but like you can plug it into anything and it'll still work as a basic panel.
What I mean is
bonus.
What I mean is internally, like I wish I had the language for this to make this to say this efficiently.
Does it validate?
Is meaning that is this a DisplayPort monitor that happens to have an iOS computer inside it that's adding extra features, or is this an iOS computer that takes a DisplayPort input, runs it through an iOS thing? Right, exactly. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd pull that. But if there's one company that would pull that, it would be Apple.
That would pull that. It'd also be interesting because like the HomePods were iOS and now they're Home OS, unofficially Home OS. The AirPods are like unofficially Audio OS. It'd be interesting to see if Apple develops sort of like a panel OS when they have enough of these with like the next generation XDR, that they just, instead of putting the whole monolithic iOS build on this, they just like, these are the parts we need. We're shipping this part now, and it's not going to have exactly what you're talking about, those sorts of like update limits on it.
Gurman says, this is going to be a disappointment to many. The Apple MacBook Air refresh has been delayed till next year, and there will be no new MacBook Pro 14 or MacBook Pro 16 models until next year. It's just chip shortage. Is Gurman off? Is he right? Is this, by the way, Renee, I told him about your Gurman thesis.
I watched.
I believe he supported it.
Yeah. When Mark says he thinks or he wants, like he wants routers, he's saying he wants routers.
Yeah,
when sources say new routers are coming, then sources are telling him new routers.
I always ignore stories that say things like, I want Apple, or here's what Apple should do, because Apple's not listening, and it doesn't matter what you think Apple should do. I mean, maybe Apple should do routers. I don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Apple wasn't going to do an iPad mini until, I'm blanking on his name now, O'Brien from GigaOM said, look how great this is. And then Eddie saw that and he goes, wait a minute, they're praising products that aren't ours?
Okay. Well, I have to thank him then.
So you never know who's reading.
I do love that mini.
Kevin Toffel, sorry.
Oh, Kevin Toffel. Really? So next time I talk to Kevin, I'm going to thank him. Yeah. Kevin Toffel made Apple make a mini?
I believe it was Kevin, yeah.
Wow.
Because Eddie got his article, then Eddie went and bought the which tab, whatever tab it was.
The Pixel 7 probably.
The one right before that, the very first Samsung,
the Samsung
6-inch tablet that came out before, sorry, not 6-inch, 8-inch, but came out right before the Pixel did. Yeah. And then Eddie carried it around and goes, no, we got to make this. And Steve's like, fine, but if you're wrong, it's like same thing with iTunes on Windows.
It's on you, man.
It's your fault.
It's all on you, man. So that's disappointing. Why do we think that first of all, do we think Mark's right, and why do we think he's right, if he is right?
The MacBook Pros were never coming. I think people would, like, sometimes people get angry if something new comes out, which is like the weirdest thing, but like they just bought it and they don't want a new version for a while.
So it's not going to be a yearly refresh on the MacBook, on the M1s, like M2 next year?
I think 18 months, I think, is going to be the cadence. 18 months. But the Air, I think, is disappointing because I think people waited a long.
We wanted those color Airs.
Yeah, we're just it never like Intel's going to make fun of Apple at a certain point for not getting their chips out fast enough.
Well, also, I'm not necessarily an iPad Air, a MacBook Air consumer, but I'm excited by the idea of what they could do with a case designed from the ground up around Apple Silicon, with its power features, with its heat features. It could really be like they could sell me something that, like, with a keyboard included, but just like this iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard, they could make something as absolutely cool, slim, and sexy as this without making it into a doorstop shape.
Yeah.
Also, that can get one in purple. That would be nice.
That's what I wanted, was the colors. Especially now that I know an M1 is an M1 is an M1. Right. I'm not going to discriminate against a MacBook Air anymore.
I want an octagon shape.
You're not going to, you could say it all you want.
I think the UFC.
That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what Apple should do next.
Want it.
You could put your MMA like action figures on it and have them fight out.
Yeah,
exactly. It has a little retracting net.
It's the octagon. Yay, I get it.
Enter the Octagon. No escort.
How about the Mac Pro? June, end of the year?
June
I think it's
tease,
end of the
year.
June tease, yeah. I think you're right.
June tease.
They
I hope
teased us-
for a June tease.
They teased us March 8th. They said there's one more.
Yeah.
I've never heard Apple do that well, except for the Mac Pro. They keep on, they'll tell us that. But after the debacle with the charger, I thought they would learn to never.
I think
Isn't
they're
the
afraid
Mac
that people
Studio
would think that
what-
this was the trash can again, and they didn't want people to panic that this was the only high-end Mac.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
For a lot of people, the Studio is exactly what, I mean, I'm very happy. I'm not going to be putting in any GPU cards into my Mac anytime soon. So I don't need the expandability.
No RAID cards?
No RAID cards. I don't need the expandability.
No
I'm very
fiber?
happy. So the Studio is exactly what I want. Once you get over the kind of the thickness of it, and I spell that with 2 C's, you kind of go, that's a nice looking little
You talk about how heavy the copper heatsink is.
It's
in the
so
Ultra one.
heavy.
It's like 2 pounds heavier.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! It made
I have them here.
Micah and I when we unboxed it. Yeah. So I don't have them side by side. When you're side by side, can you really tell the difference between
Yeah,
the?
I stacked them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one's. I tried to hold them in both hands for my thumbnail.
One hand's going. "Ugh." Well, as I said, I get my Macs Friday, and Lisa's got the Ultra, so I will.
Yeah.
Oh, Doctor said I should sneak in the middle of the night and swap them like
You
a
could
baby
just use them
swap.
the way that Alex Lindsay uses kettlebells. Just like get your workouts.
If I swapped and took her Ultra and gave her my Max, she would not know the difference at all.
Except
But-
that now you told her. You've
She's
already
gonna
told
put
her
a
now.
sticker on it. Now she's putting a sticker on
Put a
it.
sticker.
Yeah, exactly.
But honestly, I don't think I would notice either. And so, why go to all that trouble if even I'm not going to notice? I'm going to be very happy with the Max, I think.
Potentially break the
like that thing
the
where-
ultimate rule of relationships.
Exactly.
That would-
No,
It's like
you know what?
that thing where a bunch of YouTubers bought Mac Pros when the new Mac Pro came out in 2019. Nobody uses 1.5
Nobody needs
terabytes
that.
of RAM. Nobody. And nobody needed those things. But it was the flex at the time, Leo.
Yeah.
This is your flex.
No, there's a lot of overbuying when it comes to Apple
Yeah.
stuff. Always. Always.
spenders.
We have no
We're
lives, Leo. We
spenders.
have no lives other than this. Some people go on vacation. Some people buy fancy cars. Some people this is all we have.
Well, I actually go through this thought experiment because right now it's justified. We have to test them and try them and talk about them. But when I don't have to, someday in the future, the dim, dark, distant future, when I'm not actually
When you
doing
do a Dalrymple.
shows,
When you're
when I
90.
do a Dalrymple, that's good. I like it. So when I do the Dalrymple, what would I buy? What will I buy? How often will I buy? I certainly
An
won't have
iPad.
4 phones.
Just get an iPad.
Well,
just
you
have
have
an
more
iPad.
electric cars.
Yeah. No, that's right. And it's a different world.
Yeah, I mean, but it is part of Apple culture because we've grown up knowing that this is exactly. And when I say grown up, I mean from first Apple purchase to like the rest of our lives. We've grown up knowing that we will be shown a simple, like at a fancy restaurant, we'll be shown a simple menu of the 5 things we can choose from, and we will pick one of them. And we're likely to say whatever it is I think I need, I want to go one better because who knows what will happen in the future. I want to get 5 years out of this. Whereas if we were Windows people, God forbid. One of the nice things is that we could say, no, here are like 100 you can choose from. And if you don't see something that's perfect for you, go ahead and build it to your own specs because all the infrastructure is there. So yeah, there is a lot of that. Like again, just as I said earlier, if I had already put aside $2,000 for a new desktop Mac, I am going to be spending this, but I don't necessarily have that set aside right now. I very well might have bought a Mac Studio like the day that it was announced. Whereas after things cooled off, I'm like, you know what? I wasn't gonna buy this until the end of the year anyway. I'm gonna wait to see what the.
It's good to have a cool off. Always good to have a cool off period with Apple.
That's the order period, Leo. It goes to 5 months real fast, so you can cool off for like.
By the way, that's a really good thing because you can cancel with no penalty if they haven't shipped it yet. So for
Although
instance,
it is
I bought the
impressive that
Studio.
Apple is shipping.
Yeah,
Like
they
you
are
still
shipping.
can't get an NVIDIA card, or you still can't get like a
That's true.
PS5. But
They are shipping. By
there's
canceling
one
the
other thing
display,
that's super
I
funny.
canceled it.
Like if you ever see people who leave Apple, like if they've been at Apple for 10, 20, 50, like 30 years and they leave Apple, all of a sudden they don't know how to buy Apple gear anymore. Like they don't know how to buy their own iPhone. They don't know how to buy their own computer. But also like they won't beta it. Like they were living on Purple Restore for years. They won't even put the beta on. They won't even put the current release version on. And then like they won't upgrade either. And they'll upgrade like when the computer literally falls into dust in front of them. And it's the most
so sad to see Steve Wozniak waiting in line at the Apple Store to get his iPhone. It's just a sad.
But I think
he
loves it. I'm teasing.
It's a proud thing. Exactly.
It's a proud thing.
Yeah.
You know what I would wait in line to get? My new Ultimate ears. So let me talk about this sponsor. We'll come back and talk some more about all this Apple stuff. But you know that I wear in-ear monitors that are molded. These are custom molded. You go to an audiologist, they pour stuff in your ear. You have to sit with your jaw open for like 3 minutes, and then they pull it out like with a string, and it's expensive, it's complicated, and then you get earbuds that are molded to your ear and or your ear alone. And for this reason, because I'm so used to these, I never liked earbuds because they never fit quite right. Well, for years I've had Ultimate Ears molded earbuds. I am really pleased. Ultimate Ears has come up with something that's in between. It's the Ultimate Ears Fits. And while you don't have to go to an audiologist, these are actually fitted to my ears, which is really, really cool. These silicone, they're not just round generic silicone tips. They actually are fitted to my ear canal. So not only do they fit perfectly, but they seal, so you get great bass. They sound wonderful. The other here, we're actually going to show you the process because I got the Ultimate Ears some time ago, and I wanted to record the fitting process. It's something they call light form technology. And what you do is you're going to see in a minute. When you notice that was sealed, and you now immediately you have a minute or two, but you want to put that in your ear right away. First you get them turned on in the little box there. Use the app, which is a great little app that walks you through the light form process. You put them in your ear, and the light form technology, it heats. You see, it's doing it right now. Somehow heats it up a little bit, not hot. You feel it getting warm, and then it molds to your ear. 60 seconds later, you have a perfect fit. It isolates you. The bass is better. It's much, much more comfortable. There's another reason no one else can borrow your earbuds because they don't fit their ears. They only fit my ears. I just am a big, big fan of these. The sound quality is superb. You get 8 hours of continuous playback on a single charge, 20 hours with this carrying case, which is beautiful. I got the white one because it just looks like a beautiful river stone. It's soft and round. It's great for listening to podcasts, but it's the best Bluetooth headphones I've ever used for listening to music as well. And it's not surprising. Ultimate Ears, I mean, I've been using Ultimate Ears for years. They invented, in fact, this technology. Pro musicians, hi-fi enthusiasts have been using Ultimate Ears for 25 years. When Bono, pulls out his earpiece, those are molded to his ears. Chances are good those are Ultimate Ears. They started it all way back when. Full warm sound. It's got a great punchy low end. Of course, there's customized EQ, which I went through, and you can customize it to your hearing because I'm an old man, and so I wanted to make it, little bump at the high end, and it sounds fantastic. Oh yeah, that's a microphone, by the way, which is really cool. So you can pause and play music. You can answer calls. Of course, it's got a touch sensitive surface on both ears, so it's very easy to pair. It's very easy to answer calls, turn the volume up, turn the volume down, ask your voice assistant of choice for something. I think you're going to love them. And if you try them and you don't, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, even though they're molded to your ear, which I think is pretty cool. Free shipping, free returns, 1-year warranty. If you've been looking for earbuds that don't fall out, that sound great, that fit as if they were custom molded, you want Ultimate Ears because they are. They are fantastic. Go to ue.com/fits. Use promo code MacBreak. Ultimate Ears is ue.com/fits to get your pair of UE fits. And you get, I think, the greatest fit. Look at that. Promo code MacBreak. Ultimate Ears. These are really, I am absolutely serious. These are really fantastic. I keep them in my my European carry-all, so that I always have them with me. Of course, it works great with the iPhone and every other phone I have. UE.com/fits. Thank you, Ultimate Ears. They sent me these so I could try the fitting, because I said, look, I got to try this before I can recommend it, because I'm a little spoiled, with these. These are great. UE.com/fits. Fits. All right. MacPaw. Let's talk about MacPaw. We talked about them on Sunday. One of many great companies that are in Ukraine. Skylum does Luminar. Love these guys. They are in a miserable situation. I think it's interesting. MacPaw does Clean My Mac X, right? And they do some really nice little utilities for the Mac Set app. We've recommended them before. They say, despite the invasion of our country by Russia, we are going to continue to work. We're in Kyiv. So, no, well.
Thank you for trying. It was very
no.
thoughtful.
So this, we don't talk about
exactly.
this on Twig. We watched a Ukrainian woman say, no, it's Kyiv. Well, I'll say Kyiv, because that's, I think then you'll know what I'm talking about. So what they've done, which is, I think, hysterical, they made a Mac app to know whether your data is held on Russian servers.
That's great.
Isn't that amazing? It's called SpyBuster. It's free, MacPaw.
Yeah.
You scan your Mac, determines whether any apps are Russian or Belarusian. It can also tell whether any data is sent to servers in those regions. The data is significant because, MacPaw points out, this is from Apple Insider, under Russian law, authorities can command local servers to hand over voice calls, data, images, text messages from the last 6 months. If it's stored on a server in Russia, you might as well assume the Russian authorities can access it at any time. And that data has to be held on Russian servers for 3 years. So SpyBuster is available from MacPaw. We should all support them and all these other great developers in Ukraine.
And you might not know, because they might use an SDK, or they might have used an open source software package, or they might use a service that actually is it's hard to tell. So these things are invaluable.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, this kind of digital activism that's coming out specifically for this conflict. It's really, really great to see. It's reassuring to see the amount of power that is still retained by an individual who has some ability and has resources and wants to do the right thing.
And Alex, I'm sorry, but your India photogrammetry is probably on a Russian server right now. I'm sorry.
Well,
I didn't know. I didn't know, man.
I have to admit, until you said that, I had forgotten. I just hadn't thought about Metashape.
There's a lot of great software written in
a lot of good coders.
A lot of good coders in Russia, but also Ukraine. A lot of the former Soviet Union, they were very skilled coders and well trained, and they're making great software, including, by the way, AGI Soft, which is in St. Petersburg. And I have no reason to think AGI Soft is, a Putin puppet. So I'm torn. I don't know. I don't know. But this is probably a good thing to get.
You can love the
SpyBuster.
people and not love their current leadership.
Absolutely. I don't blame the people at all for their. I mean, they're as much at his mercy as anybody. Sad.
And former Governor Schwarzenegger is getting through.
Don't you love Arnold?
Goodness.
Damn, I love Arnold. Man. By the way, he is.
That's how I want to retire.
He is being. Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? And he's got I don't know what that is. His jacket with the California flag on it, and the American flag on the other. I'm putting on my. Get me my jacket. I'm going to make a video.
It sounds like I'm trying to be funny here, but I'm being serious. He's in the running to be elected like the male Dolly Parton.
I agree.
You don't hear from him a lot, but when he says something, it is beautiful. It is perfect. It helps the situation. And just like when he made that video after the January 6th attempted insurrection, this is just frank, direct. Hits all the points, and just absolutely, again, makes you very, very happy to have at least be genetically speaking the same species as this individual.
I love it that he's taking his notoriety from such movies as Total Recall and The Terminator and turning it into political capital. Is hysterical.
Well, again, it's like you make assumptions about people, celebrities too, where like, oh, okay, well, he's a muscle-bound guy and he decided to become an actor. It's like, no, he actually came to this country with basically nothing. He basically was motivated by what he wanted to do, what he wanted to accomplish. Started like a construction business that put him on his feet and made him wealthy. Went from there to this, and you're like, okay, I guess the times when like we're making fun of like the accent about, oh, I'm stupid, all I do is lift weights. Oh, actually, he's about 5 times smarter and 10 times more capable than I've been in the best day of my life.
And of course, as a result, is being reviled by state TV in Russia. On Sunday evening with Vladimir, Vadim Gigin said, that Schwarzenegger face is the cover page of American imperialism and colonialism. Not the caricature image of Uncle Sam, but this Schwartz in a Hollywood production.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what Schwartz means?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that telling? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good on you, Arnold. Arnold, here he is in his special jumpsuit. The Gubernator, we call him.
That's a power office too.
Oh man, yeah. The last video, he had a samurai sword that he brought out. This was the COVID.
No, it was the Conan sword. Like
the Conan, that's right.
The hero.
Yeah, the hero sword. Get yourself to Mars. Apple is fined for the 9th time. There's only one more week, and then this will all be over, Apple, by the Dutch regulators. It's 5 million euros every week, and I think the max is 10 weeks, right? So one more
I'm pretty
week.
sure that Apple just looked at it and said,
Counting
well,
those out in ones.
I know. The funny thing is that I think that Apple just saw it and said, well, that'll cost $50 million. And then they went back to what they were doing. They were like,
Tim Cook has a stack of singles, and he's just counting off singles every week.
Make it rain, Tim. Make it rain.
Yeah, again, exactly like that scene in The Godfather where like Sonny grabs a camera away from a reporter, smashes it to the ground, kicks it
throws
to the car,
money at him,
spits on him, and then just like does all things, peels off. See that you don't want to be Apple. You don't want to be Sonny Corleone. At worst, you want to be Michael Corleone. Okay, and you don't want to be either of those guys, really.
Is it ironic that Apple itself has changed Apple Music on Android so that they don't have to give 30% to Google?
Yeah.
Is there a little?
I agree with Gruber. That's not ironic, but putting the button there is a lot.
Oh, yeah, they break their.
It's okay. You don't have. Yeah, you don't have to pay the money if you don't want to, but putting a button that you don't allow people to put on iOS apps on the Android app because Google does allow it, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Sir.
Apple TV app on Android TV and Google TV will not let users buy or rent movies because Apple apparently had made a deal with Google that they wouldn't have to pay commissions on in-app payments. That deal expired. They were negotiating. They didn't find a solution, so they removed it. But then they did the thing that Apple won't let you do, but Google does. There is a button that says how to watch with a simple, clear explanation of how you can buy or rent content by going to a different device.
Like, have some empathy, right? Like, it's hard. Like, if you, app stores are aggregators of apps, and a lot of apps are aggregators of content, like whether it's comic books or videos or TV or music, and you can't do a 70-30-30 split. That's just not how math works. So, like, it's very little room for double aggregators, and Apple is, like, feeling this pain, but they're just like, whatever, we can do it on Android. Whoops.
Would it be
And
okay
wish that
with
they'd have
you,
more
Alex,
empathy.
if Apple allowed a button that said, here's how you can buy this stuff?
You know, the main thing is that as we open that up, as an Android user, they do whatever they're going to do. As a Mac user, I think that the Apple user, I guess what I would say is that, and I don't think Apple should have put that button on because of what their rules are. So I agree with Renee that was dumb. Yeah. You know, and so and the problem is it undermines their entire case for them to do that. And that was just it's an unforced error. They shouldn't do that. You know, they should follow their own rules inside of the Android platform for the 8 people that are using Apple TV on the Android platform. And so the thing is that, but I think that the problem is, it's not that by opening that little gap, you know, what happens is that, you know, like at this point, like Netflix makes you go, like, I'm about to get rid of Netflix because I'm going to get rid of everything that requires some other login other than my Apple remote because I've just had it. And so the thing, and like in general, the Apple TV is kind of a disaster when it comes to apps, because they let all these people check for cable, and then I still haven't gotten, I pay, I don't know how much for Masterclass. I still watch it by sharing my phone to my Apple TV, because I can't get Masterclass to work on my Apple TV, and so the thing is, because it requires some login, and I go to the website and I do this thing. That's what will happen to everything if they start opening that up. And that's the thing. It's from a user's experience. It's way better to say this is the way it works.
I think I have a better solution too. Like, instead of just putting that button there, just don't charge rev share on double aggregated content the way you don't charge it on physical goods. That, I realize that would cost everybody a little bit of money, not that much money, like compared to how much money you make from everything else. But that would mean like you don't have to have the button. You don't, like, people could actually aggregate content and share it in a way, and it would just solve so many of these problems, which just seems so silly.
Yeah, I just continue to have that annoyance with Apple. It's the one consistent thing that just annoys me about Apple and all the things I have to research about them and write about them, that they want to present this face that we are a company, we're human oriented, we care, we're not like the others, we care about you, we care about big issues. But again, not that I'm saying they should be different from other trillion-dollar companies, but it's always going to be a fact that at a certain scale, any company is not going to do things that interferes with the money. And if they're not going to let the fact that, well, look, we've sent this message about why we are pressing these limitations upon the app store developers that the app store developers thinks are unfair and unsuitable, but we're not going to follow our own rules because we're special. Because for us to be consistent in that would cost us money, and we don't want this to cost us money.
Well, especially in a market that is like a 1% market for them. I mean, I don't know anybody.
Exactly.
I don't know anybody on Android. Like, it literally is spiteful. Like, literally doing that is spiteful, because it's not a market. Like, the Android market is not a market for Apple, movies, like whatever. It's like,
Apple cared enough to make a standalone app and put it on Roku and a Google TV and other things. I think they must think there's a market for that.
Well, yeah,
It's not as good as the Apple app. I admit.
Some people like Android
TV.
Like,
yeah.
So it's nice to have that.
They cared enough about selling content from their own media store. That's what they cared about.
Yeah. So there's a company called. I was going
to say the last thing. I would never get an app. I would never buy an Apple. I would never get an app just to watch the Apple content. That's the problem that they have right now. Is I think they want to get it out to more people. But the reason that I have it is because it comes with a bunch of other things. Like, I don't like Apple TV Plus has not turned that corner yet.
You don't like Ted Lasso? I
don't like it. I haven't. I watched the first half of one
Alex.
episodes, and I was like,
Severance, Servant, The Morning Show, the Academy Award nominated Coda. You don't like that? What's wrong with you, Alex?
Oh, too much Brussels sprouts.
The space race is a whole new tenor.
But you like tiny house or whatever it is, tiny village, tiny living people.
Because the cinematography is unbelievable. As someone who shoots, like what they shot,
they got
you. I know how hard it is to do what they did, and it was really hard. And it looks beautiful, and it's like I just wish all educational content looked like Tiny World or whatever.
Yeah. Tiny World.
All right, I'll do better, Alex. I promise.
But I just wanted to be the Plimsoll who did I think it's Plimsoll Productions that did that. They do a lot of the big National Geographic stuff as well, and I'm sure that Apple so they're well known for it. And Apple just said, "How about we give you all the money to do what you do?" They were like, "Sure, I got you.
Yeah,
we'll take all the money."
Yeah,
but it took a decade to make that. Like, if you look at the second one, they're at night, which is the kind of the night version of that.
They shot that for 10 years.
That was a lot of stuff that they had already had. They were banking, and so the thing is that you could tell, because when they went to the next one, which is like, hey, let's build off of this, not so good. Like, it fell off really quickly. It's interesting. It's hard to produce that in mass quantities. Yeah.
There's a company called AliveCore. I was aware of it because Vic Gundotra left Google. He's a creator of Google Plus to work there. They make a thing that I use, and it's great to detect atrial fibrillation, brachycardia, tachycardia. It's a little, put your thumbs on it, and it's really cool. It records EKG. They want to put something similar in the Apple Watch. Apple, they claim they're suing them. Apple changed the heart rate algorithm, says AliveCore, to make it effectively impossible for third parties to inform a user when to take an ECG. A judge has now ruled, federal judge in San Jose has now ruled that Apple must face this lawsuit that claims it illegally monopolizes the U.S. market for heart rate monitoring apps for its Apple Watch. AliveCor makes a band, the Cardia Band wristband, which can record ECGs. The judge is in Oakland, I'm sorry, says that the wristband complements but does not compete in that market. And so he did dismiss AliveCor's separate claim that Apple maintained an illegal monopoly over ECG-capable smartwatches. But the lawsuit can go ahead. Apple is allegedly trying to control the market for
It's not even worth
ECGs.
making Apple Watch apps at this point. They should make it an appliance.
Yeah. And I have to say I have a little soft spot for AliveCor because it's a really $99 device that is saving
They're great,
lives.
but like this just sounds like a make work project for Apple. Like they're going to have to make all the APIs and maintain all this, and the market for Apple Watches is nowhere nearly what the market for iPhone apps are.
Yeah. True. Let's see. Do you have an iPhone running 15.4? Is your battery dying early? Apparently, 5G is the problem. You can turn it off. This is according to Nicole Nguyen in the Wall Street
You know
Journal.
what? When you turn the 5G off, you know what you're going to notice?
Nothing.
Because LTE is
Nothing.
It's like, okay,
Well,
sure.
and I will say this because I was able to find I have T-Mobile running on my iPhone 12, and I was able to find a mid-band. So there's 3 bands of 5G. There's low band, which is
you found a C-band?
Yeah, I found a C-band. So there's a very wide-speed low band. T-Mobile does it. I think AT&T does it. It's exactly the same as LTE. It's just a different technology, so it's not any faster. There's the millimeter wave, which is Verizon's super fast. That's the one they always talk about, gigabit speeds and stuff, which you can't find anywhere. You have to be within 800 feet of a millimeter wave
They don't
tower.
even care so much
I think
about
it's
it anymore.
closer
They don't
to
have to have their
800, I think it's
C-band
like-
up.
They don't care. But C-band is widely rolling out. T-Mobile does it. AT&T does it. Verizon does it. And I've tried C-band with both my Pixel 6 running Samsung S22 running Verizon, and this T-Mobile Max iPhone 12 Pro Max. 500 megabits down, 30 up.
Yeah,
it's
good,
great.
right?
But
Like, who needs
to your point, Alex, it's not. Nobody's going to notice because what are you doing that you need 500 megabits down? I don't know.
I mean, the thing that I'm noticing with every phone that I buy is that my phone quality gets lower and lower and lower. So I keep on, I'm constantly not sure whether, I just find that whether it's the other end or my end, that every time as they improve these things, we're getting more data. But when I'm actually talking to someone on the phone or FaceTime audio or whatever, anymore. It's breaking up all the time, and it's constant. It's a constant problem. I feel like I need an Ethernet cable for my phone to actually talk to people, and it's so I remember when I got on a call and it just worked, and I haven't had that experience for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so I guess you can turn off, and maybe you should if you don't care or you're not within range of any of these special towers. Turn off 5G, and you'll probably get better results.
FaceTime goes HD on the phone if you're on a 5G network, which may not be might be a bug more than a feature for you, depending on what your reception is.
Yeah,
I use FaceTime audio all the time because it sounds way better.
It does.
It
does.
Yeah.
Well, the phone system, they were trying to figure out how bad can we make it sound and still be intelligible back in the 20s or 10s.
Yes.
Right.
So it's basically like 5-bit sound. It's really low quality. It's not digital, so it's not bits, but it's like that. And we can do much better now. And so FaceTime does,
and
as
also
it should.
Just because I'm that jerk who has to do it every time. Like the difference between 5G and 4G isn't that great if you had good 4G, but 5G has just much better range and much better performance for people who never got good 4G. So for people like in the outskirts and rural areas and other places, it's delivering on that.
You should
promise
test
for them.
it, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're getting poor battery life and you turn off 5G and it's not changing anything else in your life, that might be a good way to save yourself.
Stop using your phone for a while. Battery will be fine.
Very big success for those mini LED MacBook Pros. They're outselling according to DSCC, the leader in advanced display market research. Oh, I have to log in.
Ross Young.
I have to log in to read it. Well, I'll just read the summary. New mini-LED MacBook Pros outsell all OLED laptops combined. Since there are only maybe 5 OLED laptops out there, I don't know if that's saying that much. But
amazing how much better known Ross Young has been since he started dropping leaks on Twitter.
Oh, Ross Young did that. Yeah. There you go.
That's his company.
That's his company. Good. But I'm sorry, Russ, I'm not going to log in to read your display supply chain.
He's got a report on iPhone notches up until I think 2030 at this point.
If you have a creaky iPad Air 5, you're not alone. Users are complaining that the back of the iPad feels thin and makes creaking noises. Okay, fine. I don't know how big a problem this is.
Well, I mean, it's it's a problem on a device that you hold in your hand, that if you feel like the back of it's sort of bowing in a little bit, even if it's not a safety issue and it's not a survivability issue, it's like, and also the first time you pick it up, you're very, very cognizant of how much you just spent on it, because that was like just 24 hours or 3 days ago.
It's a very thin, I guess, on the back of very thin aluminum.
We'll find out in time whether this means that people who are tossing these things in backpacks or laptop bags wind up with broken or bent frames. That is a problem, even when it's not so bad as to cause this thing to stop working. When you spend $600, $700, $800, $900, $1,000 on this thing, and then 8 months later you notice that you put it on the table and you notice it's wobbling just a little bit, that's not a good look.
Yeah,
they feel the same to me, like the 4 and the 5. They don't creak any different to me.
Verizon does say, and something in the chat room saying, they're you have both, and yours is not creaking.
No, not creaking at all.
Okay.
I mean, old phones used to creak. These are fine.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, as usual, every time there's a new piece of hardware, there will be a big wave of complaints, and the question is, a month later, are there still new complaints coming in? But this is something to take a look on, because this is a brand new design.
Yeah.
And take yours back.
Well, now we're going to find out.
It's fine. Take yours back. If you do have any problems and you are concerned, they're very generous. Andy points that all the time. They're very generous when a new product launches with their returns.
Yeah, there you go. I am going to have to. Actually, this is ultra wideband. So somebody in the chat room is saying this. Well, Verizon's rolling out more millimeter wave. I don't know if they are or not, but they are rolling out.
They're lying. They're calling C-band. They're commingling C-band and millimeter wave to make it look like they have a bigger.
So ultra wideband, which is the same
footprint.
as C-band, is going to, they say, cover 175 million people by the end of the year. And I can
ultra
get it
wideband
here.
used to only be millimeter wave. Now they're conflating the two just to make it look like they have a bigger network.
Yeah, I get UW on my Samsung, and it is fast. I'm getting that in Larkspur when I visit my daughter. In fact, it's so good, I thought I might even consider that Verizon home residential internet for her.
Yeah, it's just so flaky. Like if it rains or there's like a leaf blows in the path in line of sight.
That's millimeter wave, or are you saying that's true for C-band as well?
Millimeter. No, C-band is great.
C-band's fine.
It doesn't have
millimeter wave is such a high frequency.
Yeah.
It
bounces off raindrops.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. I'm happy about this. I'm the only one who is. But my Mustang Mach-E is now going to have charging routing in Apple Maps. It's the only car in the world. Apple put this in Apple Maps, but only Ford and BMW even said they were going to take advantage of it. And so far, the only cars at all that seem to be are the Ford Mustang Mach-E.
Is it true that the Mustang is the only car that Ford still makes? They don't make any cars anymore except for the Mustang.
The trucks are so successful for them. Yeah. Their F-150 is such a good business. I wouldn't be surprised. They've decided to divide their business into EVs and gas vehicles, petrol vehicles. So that's going to be interesting. I think like all the other... My
grandfather drove 4 carts forever, and they're gone now.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? And hey, good news. If you're still using a tile, they've launched anti-stalking safety in its mobile app.
Jobs bless.
Yeah.
I think that's, just to have parity with Apple. Even though it's
they knew they were next.
Yeah. It'll just let you know that there's a tile. You can scan for unknown tiles. I don't think Tile works basically the same as the AirTags, except that there are a lot more iPhones in the world than there are Tiles in the world. So
that's always well. Not only that, but there's always. I'm sorry. Just as it can only be scanned by people who have installed the app on their phone versus every single iPhone in America is tracking you. So that's right.
Although Tile's using Amazon's network now, I think, and they've greatly increased their.
Oh, that's right. They're using Sidewalk. Is that what they're using? No, yeah. Oh, okay. That's
okay.
Cool. I heard that. Yeah. I don't know how many people have Sidewalk on.
Well, but I mean, like they're going to build out.
It will help. That's for sure. I am going to take a little break. So if you would, please prepare your picks of the week coming up next. Our show today brought to you by the address experts, Melissa. To ensure your business is successful, your customer information has to be accurate, right? Well, Melissa is the leading provider of global data quality and address management solutions to make sure your contact lists are up to date. 37 years in this business. More than 10,000 businesses know Melissa as the address experts. With a renewal rate of 92%, the typical return on investment, 25%. Melissa capped off last year by reaching a milestone 30 billion. 30 billion with a B North American address lookups in the year. That's the most ever. People love Melissa because people move. Emails change. Names change. You want to keep track of your customers. You don't want to be sending bills, brochures, catalogs to the wrong address, calling the wrong number. Melissa's global address verification service works for addresses in 240 plus countries and territories. And because you can get Melissa in a variety of ways, you can even have it work at the point of entry because they have an API. You could build it into your software. A lot of customer service software includes Melissa. A lot of shopping cart software includes Melissa. You might even have experienced that where you start typing in the address and Melissa says, yeah, you mean this? Or hey, your zip code's wrong. Let's fix it. Melissa can do so much. They can eliminate duplicate customer information in your database with data matching. That helps save money. You don't want to send multiple catalogs to the same person. You can do batch cleansing, upload it to their secure FTP server and process the entire list for accuracy and completeness, then download it. They can help you with identity verification, too. Reduce risk, ensure compliance, keep customers happy. They can do geocoding, insert latitude and longitude right there into the address as you go. Look at that. That's so cool. Email verification. They can remove up to 95% of bad email addresses from your database. And because you can get it the way you want it, on-prem as a web service. I mentioned FTP, software as a service, lookups, plural app on iOS. It's on Android as well to search addresses, names, and more right there in your phone. And of course, Melissa treats your address data as the solid goal it is, with complete privacy. They undergo continuous independent security audits. If you have to be SOC 2 or HIPAA or GDPR compliant, you'll be glad to know Melissa does and is compliant. Melissa's industry-leading products and services empower improved business communications, more profitable customer relationships, and give you a competitive advantage. And by the way, their global support center, nice people, 24/7, world-renowned support. Sign up for a service level agreement, and you are gold. Melissa continues to go above and beyond. They were named the Data Quality Magic Quadrant by Gartner. That's 2 years in a row now. G2 Crowd's 2022 report ranks Melissa as a leader, both in address verification and data quality software. If you're not using Melissa, you're sending a lot of your stuff to the wrong person. You've lost track of so many customers and more all the time. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. Very easy to log on, sign up, start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. You can get started today with 1,000 records clean free. Melissa.com/twit, MELISSA. Melissa.com/twit. Please use that /twit so they know you saw it here. Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa.com/twit. Andy Inotko, it's time for your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is yet another idea sort of blobby organizer form it in your head, Iser. Literature and Latte make my favorite word processor, Scrivener, which is what I do all my projects on: books, columns, scripts for radio shows, everything. And they also have this really cool app called Scapple, which is, again, it's hard to define. It's an idea. It's one of those apps that takes the ideas in your head and lets you information and just put it on something. Basically, it's an infinite chalkboard where you can stick notes to, and that seems like something that anybody could code up in about 10 seconds, as if they're taking an introductory programming course. But they've done this so very, very well in that there are other apps that are like this, that try to impose a structure on you, that try to say, well, here's how you're going to tag this thing, and here's how you're going to categorize and color things. This app, it actually just works like, look, here is a whiteboard. Put whatever you want on it. If you want to move them around and group things together, you can do that. If you want to put arrows between things and create links to it, you can do that as well. And so it's a great thing for like this research project that I've been doing for years and years and years, where there are just so many different subjects. And actually, I've been keeping my notes straight in Scrivener for all this time, but there are times when I just want to see what I have, or I just want to have this second screen. This is a brilliant full screen app, because again, if you just want a surface to just put something down on, this is a great your second or third monitor. This is a great place to put it, and being able to take all this research and simply saying, okay, here are the three primary people that are associated with this story, and then, well, what are their timelines? What are their pictures? What are their newspaper articles that are related to them? And it's very, very easy to just throw this together, and then always have this ready for you so that you can just look at things. People are not. I also use Omni Outliner for stuff like this. I love it, but sometimes the best way to get your head around something is a visual approach. Since I installed it, it's been around for years. I really just put it on my computer like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But ever since I dedicated like an entire screen to this, it's very, very easy for my brain to realize that, oh, if I want this piece of information, it's going to be located here on this sector of the screen, because that's where I left it. And it's been very, very useful. This is, again, emphatically, if you want to use it as a window on a MacBook screen, it's probably not going to be that effective. As a separate workspace, it works great. But as something that's on its own, like 24-inch monitor, it's absolutely brilliant.
Nice. Scapple.
It's $18, but there's a free trial mode with all features unlocked for about a month.
Oh, that's a good deal, actually.
Yeah.
From, as you say, literatureandlatte.com. And since you're in the library, I think that's very appropriate. Literature
exactly.
and latte, Scapple.
Literature and tap water, in my case. drinking fountain water. Library drinking fountain water. Best kind.
Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So this has been long awaited, and I think it's ripping through the audio world. Autonate makes hardware, or makes a thing called Dante Virtual Sound Card. Now, what this does is, if you're already on Dante, it means that you can have your Mac. You don't have to have any hardware for it. You can just plug it in, and it'll be available to your mixer. So all of our mixers are Dante. We have cards that we put into them that make them on a Dante network, and that makes it really easy for us to route audio. So we can basically route all this audio from one place to the other. Without Dante Virtual Sound Card, we have to basically put a little piece of hardware to convert our audio to Dante, that comes out of the computer. And with Dante Virtual Sound Card, it means the computer just has inputs, like four input, 4 in or 2 in, 2 out, kind of thing. It might be 4 in, 4 out. Anyway, so the point is that it is now available on the M1. We've been waiting for many of us have been waiting for this for a long time. So it's taken them a long time, for whatever reason, to get it compatible with the M1. A lot of audio software has been having trouble, getting M1 compliant, and so they finally did it. So it's a really powerful piece of software that gets your computer. You do want to have something in your network that has the Dante chip in it, because that helps with the clocking. But you can now add lots of computers. So, for instance, instead of buying lots of pieces of hardware, Office Hours uses at least 5 iMacs, Mac Minis, M1 Mac Minis. 6 actually, M1 Mac Minis. And right now we're taking audio out. We would have to take audio out one at a time with their audio outputs. now what we can do is actually just put them on Dante, and they'll all be, I can network them and put them into any device that we have on the network that's in Dante.
If I were going to set up a new studio, I might put like everything on Ethernet, and and everything would talk to each other. And
if everything has, you can get this for the PC or the Mac. It is now all of your computers. You want to have one thing, like you might have a mixer. That might be like an X30, Behringer X32 is what a lot of us use in our home setups.
Got one of those,
and yeah. So the Behringer X32, you put a Dante card into that, and then now any computers that you put the virtual sound card on, which is like $30, you can see it, and you can just route it to different inputs
That's cool.
effortlessly.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And where it gets really interesting is that you use something like Loopback, and Loopback can see the Dante. So now you can do all kinds of very complicated audio loops in and out of applications with and access anything that's available on that Dante network.
Dante from Audinate, Audinate, now M1 enabled, the Dante virtual sound card. Renee Ritchie, pick of the week.
So I know you must have discussed this already, but I wasn't here. So I thought I would bring up the new iPhone SE again, because it's a very interesting phone. For people who are watching this show, I imagine all of us have the latest, well, maybe not Andy, but he's thinking about it, the latest, greatest iPhone imaginable, and we're only ever going to upgrade to the latest, greatest iPhone imaginable. But there are, I don't know how big the group is, but there is a significant enough for Apple to want to address group of people who still love their home button, want nothing to do with gesture notifications, don't care at all about chunky beard and goatee, high top bezels. They want the iPhone that they grew up having, the one that Steve Jobs introduced. They have no care or concern for OLED or for not 5G, but any of those fancy features. And they just don't want to pay a lot. They don't want to pay $1 more than they have to for an iPhone, but they do want an iPhone that still feels new and snappy. For the vast majority of people, I would still recommend an iPhone 11 over an iPhone SE, because it's only like $70 more for the base model. And it does have that modern experience, that fuller screen, dual camera system, a lot of the modern amenities to it. But some people just really want that classic traditional iPhone. And this, because it's got the latest processor, it's going to get iOS updates for years and years to come. I mean, the original iPhone SE from 2016 just got iOS 15 last year. So they're supported for a ridiculous amount of time. The build quality is aces, so they last a long time. I don't know what kind of dark magic Apple conjured for the battery life. It's some mix of A15 just being a cooler chip, battery chemistry better at keeping out the degradation that usually occurs. iOS 15 on itself is slightly more optimized, and the battery is 10% bigger. So you put all that together and it gets like 2 hours longer battery life. So for anyone who's really, any of our family members or friends who really just wants a classic iPhone experience, you've got a new iPhone SE available. It's $30 more because every phone with 5G, those modems are expensive. Qualcomm going to get paid, but over the course of 5-6 years, if you keep it that long, not a huge difference. So if you wanted a new iPhone, that's not an expensive iPhone. The iPhone SE is that.
I tell everybody on the radio show to get it. That's the radio show audience right there.
That's the demo.
Yeah, that's the demo. 100 plus. So, so I'm going to have to ask Alex to explain all this to me. I've been building this will be for the cruise to Alaska, a portable audio podcasting recording setup. So I've got my Pelican case with the SM58s and all that stuff. But what I got, and the product I want to mention, is this Zoom, the new Zoom F3 field recorder. And this is, look how little that is. Takes two AA batteries and records, probably about 8 or 9 hours with it. Has a little micro SD card, which can hold 99 hours on this one because it's 256 gigs. It has 2 XLR jacks. It provides phantom power, even at 48 volts. So it's a nice little recording rig. But the thing that makes this very interesting, it's audio only, besides the size, by the way, they show pictures of people strapping it to their pole for their microphone. It's that light and small, or you could wear it around your wrist because it's got these bars. But the thing that makes it interesting, this is where I'm going to defer to Alex on this, they call it 32-bit float recording. So we know CDs are 16-bit. Sometimes a lot of music is recorded at 24-bit. That's the sample rate, not the sample rate, the sample bit depth. not the sample rate. So a CD is 44,100 samples per second at 16 bits. But this is 32-bit float. And what Zoom says, and I have to say I've been able to confirm it by yelling at it, is you can't clip the recorder. You can clip the microphone, obviously, but you can't clip the recorder because there's so much headroom with 32-bit float. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Basically, what happens is there's still a dynamic range within the preamp that you're getting, but if you look at it, your preamp is living in this little world of, let's say, 120 dB, but it's sitting inside of here.
Of you listening at home.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And it's so.
Oh, it's awesome.
But this is the range of 32-bit float. So it's this tiny little range that you have here, but 32-bit float is like plus or minus 1400 dB or something like that.
Right.
So you can't get to. I mean, it's plus or minus 700 and so I meant 1400 total, but it's plus or minus like 700 and some dB.
Plenty.
744.
Plenty.
A lot. I don't have that number on the top of my head.
You could whisper and scream. You could play an instrument in a whole orchestra, and you would not be able to fill up the dynamic range.
Like for instance, a good example is if you were recording a gun or something like that, you could capture the blast and capture the shells, hitting the ground or whatever, because it's going to get. Normally, you can't do anything like that. So for recording those kinds of things, what it really does from a production perspective is that you have your target to hit when you're in the field is much larger. So now what happens is, you recorded it too low, you can recover it. Oh, you recorded it a little too loud. You can't really, record it too loud, but the biggest problem you have is that suddenly someone's really loud, or you didn't get it turned up enough, and you can always bring it back, because all that data is actually there. And so there's still dynamic range within the preamp that you have there, and
it's a pretty good preamp, and it's pretty good. I mean, the quality I'm getting out of it is pretty good. Yeah. $350 good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And 32-bit float. I mean, so we've been using 32-bit float for a while because Sound Devices put it into all of their stuff a while ago. And there's actually a great paper about 32-bit float on Sound Devices website about it as when they released it a couple of years ago. And so,
I have that in my USB pre. I just didn't know it.
In the MixPre 2, I believe. Okay. I don't know if it's in MixPre 1.
I have a 3, I think.
MixPre 2, yeah.
Or MixPre 2, MixPre 3 2.
Okay.
It should have the 32-bit float. I don't think that the first one.
This can be used the same way, which is kind of interesting. You can plug your mic into it, and it has a Type-C connector, and pass it through. You can get power over Type-C, by the way, and you can pass it through and use it as an interface, audio interface as well, which is kind of another reason to carry this around. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and the other thing I like is you get the waveform on the LCD.
Oh, really? That's great. That's awesome.
So you can actually see if you're...
Zoom's come a long way. I mean, they started off rough, and they have definitely been finding their way.
They were a consumer product, right?
What I really like about Zoom,
I think.
What I like about Zoom is that they're very creative. So, they're willing to take a lot of risks. Like they have that 8-channel one that looks like a spider.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, I don't understand that. But what I love about it was that they're not stuck in I'm just going to build a box. They're like playing with all these ideas. So I think that it's good. I think that I have not seen that recorder. That one is tiny and really cool looking. So it's I think that it's but 32-bit float is. I wouldn't at this point buy a field recorder that didn't have 32-bit float because it has already saved me at least 3 or 4 projects where the audio wasn't where we wanted it to be. And if we had done it any other way, we would, because we're sending out remote kits that we're not controlling.
Right.
And we can't, and someone on the other end is not technically, it's nothing, there's no replacement for a great field recorder and field recordist, that's going with it. But when you have to send it out, especially during COVID, we had to send all of these out. We have executives turning up their audio. It's not. It's not a great environment for us, or it wasn't. And the float in the MixPres, which is what we were using, it saved us at least 4 or 5 times.
I'm very happy. $350. It's got the tripod mount on it. It's quarter 20. It's got I love these little bars because you can put it in a strap around your wrist. They have a picture of somebody. You can wear it on your belt. You can put it on your boom if you want.
No.
And it's been pretty robust. I banged it around. It's got a headphone jack out. It's got line out.
It's a slick little. I've never.
Isn't that cool?
That is like. That might be the smallest recorder I've ever seen. You know, like that does what it does. It's really interesting. Yeah.
And it can handle up to a terabyte SD card. I have, as I said, 256 gigs in here, and that's 99.99 hours.
A long time.
That's plenty of time.
That's just because it can't go up. It can't go to the next one.
Probably. That's it. Probably can do more, but it just runs
probably
out
record a couple
digits.
hours. And it's probably like it's probably recording a couple hours. You go, I recorded 100 hours, and it still says there's 99 hours
exactly.
left.
That's a week of office hours, though. I mean, if we're honest.
Yes.
Let's be
But I was thinking, when I go on the cruise, I might want to sit down with somebody at a table. So I have table stands, a microphone,
that's great,
cables, and then this little field recorder.
Awesome.
And I thought this would be a handy thing to have to do.
That's just slick.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Yeah.
What's the model of that?
This is the F3. They do make an F6, which also supports 32-bit, but has 6 inputs. I almost got that. It's a lot more expensive, obviously, because I was kind of intrigued by the idea of doing a roundtable show like this on the cruise. But it's also it's $750. It's not much bigger. See, here's a picture of the F6 sitting on a tripod head. John, if you can show that, So it's not much bigger, and it's also 32-bit. So
I mean, Zoom has been really pushing the envelope.
They're not. I mean, they've always been popular with podcasters because it's an easy way to go out and do a field recorder. For years, as a radio reporter, I had a little, Tascam cassette recorder, and you'd have a microphone. So this is basically replacing that in a very small package with great quality, I think. So.
And can I also say one of the best things I heard you say about that is the fact that it has like that LCD screen, because this is the Mix Pre 3. And one of the things that made me buy it, apart from Alex's recommendation, which should have been enough, is this idea that it has this meter, so I can actually see what the audio that it's seeing, and there's a big flashing light for recording. The number of times where I've recorded an interview with somebody, and my mind can focus on the conversation because out of the corner of my eye I can see that yes, the recorder is recording, and yes, it does see the audio. So yeah, that's such a great feature. Particularly
imagine, I'll put this on my belt at CES, say, and I can do this. I'm recording, and you can't. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see there's a waveform there as I'm speaking, so you know exactly what's going on. And it's 2 channels, so that's
Report live from Twit at CES.
Exactly.
Tell us about your doodads and your gizmos.
I don't know why. It's something habitual that I have in me that I got to have an audio recorder. I don't know why, but
you're an old school radio.
It is old radio guy. Yeah. I also love it because it used to be so much harder, and now it's it's so easy and so transparent, and I kind of love that.
And they've made
when
huge.
Anatko and I were carrying those reel-to-reels around, that was hard.
Oh no, I could. I started collecting tape recorders during the pandemic, as because we all started doing weird things
as one does.
We were in stir crazy.
Tape recorders or sourdough bread. You get your choice.
And my favorite ones in the collection are ones that were actually used by reporters. I have from WEEI news radio in Boston their boxy thing cassette tape with a WEEI logo with a microphone attached. The most fun one was a very, very nice one. It looks like a very, very thick Walkman, though it precedes the Walkman. The fun part is that it has a mount on the bottom so you can attach I'm not joking, a pistol grip to it with a trigger that starts and stops the recording. So so you're actually walking up to a politician at City Hall like this.
We
call that the American record button, Andy.
Pistol grip not included here. Zoom F3, $350. If you want more, you can get an F6 for $750 that has 6 inputs, which would be enough to do your podcast. That's for sure.
And they've come such a long way.
Well, I like the idea I could provide my own mics. The old Zoom recorders had their own mics, which were fine, but I like the idea I can have an SM58 or something else. I was thinking of getting that Neumann that you like so much, but then I don't want to carry that around. So the SM58.
It would be horrible on a ship, though, because it's so sensitive. The SM58 is the perfect mic for what you're doing.
Noisy stuff. Yeah, I got a couple of little table stands I can set up.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm ready to do my show.
Paper in it? Press credentials?
I have a hat with press in it. Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
Captain, I need to know. Are we going to hit an iceberg? That is it for MacBreak Weekly for this Tuesday. Thank you, Renee Ritchie, for coming back to us. You'll find Renee's...
Thank you for being here.
All of Renee's stuff at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. And you just been cranking out stuff, I'm sure, all about all the new hardware. And you've got it. It looks like you've got everything.
All the reviews are live, yes.
Yeah. So there he is trying to weigh in his hands 2 different Mac Studios. He's got the iPad Air 5, which he's now dropped on the floor. So the iPhone
I dropped the iPad Air 4, luckily.
Oh, that's all right then. And somebody in the chat room saying, well, would you recommend the Studio Display knowing even with the camera issue? Apple says they're going to fix it.
Mac nerds who've wanted a 5K display and just didn't want anything to do with the 4K displays, you finally got what you've been asking for. If you haven't asked for it, then don't get it. Get something else. You're fine.
I'm happy with 4K. Why do you need 5K?
Every designer I know has gone gaga over this. It's what they've been waiting 5 years for. Anyone who makes like a human interface or like anything like that, they've been waiting forever.
They know what they want, and this is what they want.
Yes.
So if you know you want it, get it. Thank you, Renee. Andy Anako, WGBH in Boston, and also at the local library. When are you going to be on GBH next?
I'm off this week, but tune in next week, Friday at 12:30 p.m. Go to WGBHnews.org to listen to it live or later, or you can listen to last Friday's show in which I talked a bunch about Apple stuff.
Oh, I bet you did. And, of course, from officehours.global and 090.media, Alex Lindsay. We watched the rocket go up this weekend at Office Hours. That was really cool.
Yeah, and this week we're actually breaking down how we did it. So tomorrow morning we're going to talk about the graphics. So the graphics crew will talk about, because they were taking real-time telemetry from the rocket and putting it into the graphics.
That was so cool. I loved that.
And so we'll be talking about that a little bit. The next day we're talking about the actual production, because there was quite a production there. There was 8 or 10 cameras, and we were doing they were literally live back and forths with Australia, and we were, there was a lot of things, and this is all just like people having good fun weekend, and so anyway, it was just totally absurd.
Again, that's what's really interesting about this world is this stuff that used to have a truck. You used to have a truck to do. Suddenly you can do things. And we didn't have a truck.
We had a Tesla. It was a Tesla with a lot of power. Yeah. So Jeff Keithley, he does a lot of sports and a lot of different productions, brought his Tesla. That's a full production unit inside the Tesla. So he
was he powering it with a Tesla's battery?
We had a generator.
Oh yeah. I think it's hard to. You got to get an alternator and stuff. Yeah.
Like this is out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. So it's but we're already planning the next one. Like it was like the minute we finished, we were like, that was great. We did a great job. Now what are we gonna do different for the next one? So it's already.
You need a model of the rocket so that you can take it apart and show just like Walter Cronkite did. Show the
AR
pieces. AR,
break it up.
AR. That's right. Yeah,
exactly. So
090.media if you want to hire Alex. Officehours.global if you want to see the most amazing 3-ring circus of geeks ever, 24/7. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Great to have you all. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to our Club Twit members who make all of this possible. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all of our shows. Becoming increasingly important as advertisers are pushing harder and harder for ad tracking technology, and we're pushing against them. But boy, if we have a big enough Club Twit, we don't have to worry about that anymore. If you don't want trackers, you don't want ads, $7 a month. You also get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is great fun. Really wonderful place to hang out. During the show, there's a MacBreak section. Actually, it's 24/7, but it's most active during the show. But there's also sections on every possible subject, including beer, wine, cocktails, the book club, current affairs, cooking, hacking, ham radio, coding, travel, and more. And you get the Twit Plus feed, which has all sorts of stuff, including the special fireside chat with Patrick Delahanty we did last week. That was really cool. Our official engineer, software engineer. You also will be hearing Stacy's Book Club this week on the 24th. The Untitled Linux Show, the GizFizz, lots of other shows that are Club Twit only. All of that for $7 a month. How do we do it? I don't know. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit and you can participate. Of course, we always offer everything we do live as well. If you want to watch us live, it's live.twit.tv. MacBreak Weekly is Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. I had to adjust that because we're on summertime now, 1800 UTC. The chat room is live at irc.twit.tv as well as the Discord. After the fact, get shows from our website, twit.tv/mbw. You'll find a YouTube channel with all the MacBreak Weekly shows in video. And, of course, you can subscribe on your favorite podcast client and get it automatically the minute it's available. Please do. Please do. And leave us a 5-star review if you do, so you can let the world know about this show. I think the longest-running Mac podcast anywhere. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now get back to work. I hope you have a nice Mac studio waiting for you, because break time is over.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, what in the world happened to that photo? Yes, you have. I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuning in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.